This has been the most requested video I make on my YouTube channel, which is a full edit video of my process in Photoshop. So in this video, I'm gonna be editing a recent photo I did with Daphne, showing you my process from frequency separation, dodge and burn, and color grading. Now this is gonna be more of an intermediate level tutorial. I didn't wanna make the video any longer than it already is by covering every single little detail. So let me know in the comments, do you guys want to see more full edit videos? Do you want to see more beginner level videos? Let me know in the comments, give me some feedback. But with that said, we're going to cover todo el pedo. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do when I open up my images is I'm going to go into the layers panel. I'm going to add a duplicate. So I'm just going to press Command J, and now I have layer 1. Now looking at this image, there's going to be a couple of things I'm going to want to fix. I have this little scrape or little marking here. I have another little area that I'm going to fix here. And then of course I have a lot of bubble gum on the floor. This is in downtown where it's a high traffic area where people are always walking. So I'm going to use the spot healing brush to fix this. And all I'm going to simply do is just brush over these little markings. Make sure that my brush is relatively the same size as the gum that's on the floor. And that should be an easy fix. I could also use the patch tool or the healing brush. There's many different ways of doing things in Photoshop. So I'm gonna go ahead and fast forward this part. What I'm basically gonna do is I'm just gonna get all the gum out, and then we'll move on to these little areas here that are messed up on the wall. So for these areas right here, I'm going to use the new layer button, and I'm going to use the clone stamp. So I'm going to clone it in, and the reason why I'm making a new layer is that I can go ahead and simply erase it if I go over the leg just a little bit. And I'll go over the leg on purpose because it's on its own layer. I can go back in a little bit and I can erase it. So I'll show you what that looks like in a moment. Get some of these other spots here. Okay. So because it's on its own layer, so if I just hold Alt, you'll see that it's on its own layer there. I can then just get the eraser tool. I can use a mask if I really wanted to, but in this case, I think I can just eyeball it. There you go. Okay. And this one I messed up, so I'm gonna try it again. And this is one where maybe I might use a mask on it, but these are just such a small detail that you might not even be able to tell anyways. If I'm posting this on Instagram, probably not gonna zoom in. And to be honest, actually that'll get cropped out anyways because the 8x10 crop, you won't even see that. So I'm gonna go ahead and continue and find some more of these little spots over here. And I wanna say that the ground, I'm gonna go ahead and merge this one. I'll press Control E just to merge it. There we go. And if I just hit the eyeball, you'll see that, yep, pretty much got all the gum out of the way. And I'm going to now focus on the wall now. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in. And I'm going to go ahead and use the patch tool and see how that works. I'm going to circle it around here. There we go. I'm going to bring that down. That worked out well. I'm going to zoom in, switch to the spot healing brush, and just quickly remove some of these imperfections on the wall. And it looks like there's another one over here. So what I'll do a lot of times is I'm zooming in, looking for little areas that I might find distracting. And that's usually my first step, is cleaning up any parts of the image that I feel are not gonna work out in the image. So it's a very tedious step, but it's also important to kind of get the starting point, because after this, I'm gonna get into the dodge and burn. So for the wall here, I'm going to use the content aware. I think that that's going to work out good. So I'm going to switch to my mouse real quick. There we go. It's easier with my mouse than with the little tablet doing the selection. There we go. Go up here. Okay. And then I'm going to push Shift F5 to get the content aware. And what the content aware is going to do, it's going to look at the pixels and it should fill it in. And it should do a good job. And let's see how it did. And it did good. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing over here. click here, go all the way up. There we go. Good, come all the way down. And we should be good there. Shift F5. There we go. Content aware. And that should have filled in that little area as well. And it did a decent job. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and undo that. I think what I'll do for this one, I'm going to try the patch tool instead. And see how that does. I'm going to zoom out. And let's go this way. Let's see if this works out better. And it didn't, so I'll just use the clone stamp now to just go up and fix that right about there. Good. So now I've fixed that. Had a couple little problems there, but you know, that's why it's good to know how to use multiple tools. You don't want to be stuck just knowing how to use a spot healing brush. You want to know how to use the patch tool, spot healing, and the clone stamp. So now that I've already cleaned up the image, I'm gonna now go into frequency separation. So with frequency separation, I already have an action that I've made. I'm gonna go ahead and click this, and I'm gonna go ahead and run the action. And the first step that I'm gonna get asked is the median, which is basically removing the texture from the image. So I'm gonna take a look at this. 18 looks pretty good. I'm probably gonna try maybe 21. Let's try 21. I'm gonna hit OK. And there we go. There's my frequency separation action. The first step that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go to my texture, and there's gonna be some hair that's on the face that I want to fix and adjust. And then there's also these blemishes as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the healing brush. And the healing brush, I'm just gonna hold Alt. And I'm just going to, oh, I love when that happens. I'm gonna go to current layer. And then we're gonna brush all the way across. There we go. I'm gonna hold Alt, and I'm gonna hold all the way across right there. And I think you kind of get the picture here. This is a pretty easy step. This will be a step that most of you guys should know how to do already. All I'm going to simply do is on the texture layer, remove and fix any kind of blemishes that are in the image. The main ones that I want to focus on are the hair, which there's a lot of spots all around here, which is going to take some time. So I think this part I'll probably fast forward here. The hair, I think you kind of get the point. Basically, I'm just going to be using the spot healing brush once again and making sure that my brush is relatively the same size as the strand of hair. There we go. Okay, so I pretty much have removed the hair. Now I'm gonna go ahead and just remove the blemishes and take my time and get that done. Now that I've kind of cleaned up the image with the blemishes and the hair, I'm gonna now focus on the smoothing of the skin with the color layer. And I'm gonna go ahead and use the mixer brush. So I'm gonna push Shift and then B so I can switch to the mixer brush. I have my settings up here. I am using a Wacom tablet, so these settings might not work good for you, assuming you're using a mouse or you're using a touchpad. So keep that in mind. So all I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to smooth out the transitions of the color, and I like to have a helper black and white layer on just so that I can see where these transitions are actually occurring. Now I'm not going to try to make it perfect because dodge and burn is where I'm going to really spend more time smoothing it out, but this is going to kind of help speed that process up a little bit and just kind of getting things where I need it. So I'm going to go ahead and just go around and just look for any kind of areas that maybe are a little bit too dark. Transitions are a little bit, you know, off a little bit. And of course, this is going to be different from image to image. So I usually will look for areas that are, you know, a little bit darker, like right here on the lip. I'm going to try to push this color down to kind of even out that transition and just try to smooth it out. So when I zoom out with Command minus, I can click this eyeball on and off, and this is what I've already fixed already within the couple of seconds that I've been pushing and mixing color. Just a subtle effect, but it helps give me a good starting point for when I get into dodge and burn. So I'm going to go ahead and just keep pushing around some color and keep kind of minimizing some of the transitions that are apparent once again. And I'm constantly readjusting my brush size as I'm doing this. So, and zooming in and zooming out as well, because sometimes you can easily overdo this. I do it all the time, unintentionally of course, but that's why you're always zooming in and zooming out. And I like to have an extra copy of the color layer because I could always go in with the opacity and then kind of tone it down. So that's what I typically will do when I'm doing my frequency separation. And now I'm going to take the helper layer off, and I'm just going to kind of see what I've done so far. So I'm going to click the eyeball here, before, and then the after. Before, after, it's looking pretty good. I'm going to zoom into the face just one more time to make sure everything's looking good. Before, and then the after. Keep in mind, I can always, because I've made a copy of my color layer, I can always just pull this back and adjust it where I want. So for this one, I'll probably go down like 85, just in case I went a little bit overboard. It's not as much. Now I could probably spend a little bit more time with the mixer brush to kind of smoothing things out. But I've already edited this image. I'm not going to go in there and make sure everything's perfect. So I think this one is actually pretty good. It's actually not too bad. So I'm going to go ahead and continue with the dodge and burn next. So I always do frequency separation first, then I get into my dodge and burn. So I'm going to go ahead and run my dodge and burn action. And I'm going to start with dodge first. I'm going to get my brush tool, Shift B. And I'm going to get my dodge and burn todo el pelo brush. So I'm going to zoom in. And now, this is the fun part. I'm just joking. This is the part where it's kind of like probably the most boring thing to watch on editing, which is dodge and burn. And it's just smoothing out these transitions here. So there's a little transition here that's a little bit too dark. So just zooming in real close and smoothing some of these things out. And that's all I'm really going to be doing for about 10, geez, what the heck, 10 minutes, I wish. Typically my dodge and burn will be anywhere from 20 minutes to an hour. It really depends on the type of image. So it varies, but this is one of the most tedious steps when editing, but the payoff is really, really, really noticeable. So as I'm gonna fast forward this in a little bit because I think most of you guys should understand this step. Some little tips are to be zooming in and out, of course, which I'm sure you do. Also to be rotating your image just to get different vantage points, and like you'll notice transitions being off a little bit for some reason when you have it turned to the side. So I'll constantly be turning the image to the side. In a little bit when I'm fast forwarding it, you're gonna see me also have it like upside down sometimes, like this. And you'll see even more imperfections pop up. Like right here, I just saw one pop up. So all of these things are little helpful tips as you're doing dodge and burn. The last tip is to work with your helper layers. You know, be adding multiple helper layers. So like right now I'm gonna add a brightness and contrast, and I'm gonna just kind of push this contrast up a little bit and the brightness. And now I've seen more areas pop up that need to be addressed. And so I'm constantly going to be working with my helper layers to help assist me so that I can get these imperfection areas. So with that said, I'm going to fast forward the video now. I'm going to be going in and adjusting all of these little areas that I see that are wrong. Now I'm probably not going to spend as much time as I did on the actual original image, just because I've already done this image and I kind of don't want to go all in on the dodge and burn and probably take like 30 minutes. So I'm probably going to do more of a quicker version. I'll probably do like a 15-minute kind of dodge and burn as I'm doing this. But as you can see my settings up there, I'll typically use 100% opacity and then 2% flow. Now keep in mind I am using a tablet, so those settings work for me. And they might not work for you depending if you're using a mouse, touchpad, or even if you do have a tablet, those settings might not work for you, because I have certain settings for my tablet as far as the sensitivity. So keep that in mind as you're doing dodge and burn. Use settings that are going to make the most sense for what you're trying to achieve. So if you just want to see what I've done so far, I'm going to take the dodge off. This is before and this is the after. Obviously I'm still not done, but I've done the forehead a little bit. I've done this side of the cheek. No, by all means it's not perfect, but you're kind of seeing the general idea of what I'm doing. Smoothing the transition here, making sure things here are smooth. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to the cheek now. Then we'll go into the chin in this area, and then we'll get into the lips. I'm actually going to burn a little bit of the hand here because the light was camera right. So it's pretty close to this hand. I don't want this hand to stand out as much. So I'm going to actually just burn the hand just a little bit so that I don't draw too much attention to that hand. So let's take a look at what I've done so far. I'm going to hold Alt so you guys can actually see the dodge. I always get creeped out when I see this. But this is what I've done so far with dodge. I could definitely probably take a little bit more time with this, but for now I'm just gonna leave it like that. I think it looks pretty good considering I did a fast dodge and burn edit like in probably like 15 minutes, 10 minutes I think. And you know, obviously I could spend a little bit more time, go in there and really, you know, make this image pop a little bit more. But what I am gonna do next is I'm gonna add a dodge, another dodge layer. I'm gonna make it separate from this one. And the reason being is because I'm going to add just a little bit of light or a little bit of brightness, you know, to the hair. And I want to be able to control that separately from what I have already on the face. Okay, and the reason for that is that I could always, you know, adjust the opacity if I need to. I can go in there and make any kind of adjustments. Now, for this one, once again, I'm doing it kind of quick, just because I've already edited the image, but just to give you guys a general idea of what I'm doing here. I'm just increasing the flow up a little bit higher, just so that a little bit of that punch of exposure that I'm bringing up will stand out. I'm gonna go ahead and just click the eyeball just to kind of see what I've done. And yeah, it's given the hair just a little bit of that nice little bit of a shine that I'm looking for. So there you go, that looks pretty good. And then the next one I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and add an extra burn. And I'm gonna burn in a couple of areas that I wanna kind of darken up just a little bit. So I'm gonna go in here and I'm just gonna darken some of these little areas. The sidewalk and to this wall, so that the light, because as the light, once again, I had a camera right and it's hitting this wall here, and if I take it off, you'll see that it had this kind of brightness to it. So by darkening that up, that puts more of the attention on Daphne. So I'm going to kind of double check everything, my dodge. And the reason why I like to have it separated, as I was telling you earlier, is I can still go here and say, you know what, maybe I went a little bit too far. I can bring it down to 90. The dodge here, I'm going to double check it. Yeah, I'm going to bring it down maybe like 85. It's always better to go less than more. And then the burn that I had there, same thing. Probably bring it down to like 85 or something. We'll leave it at 86. There we go. Now what I'm going to focus in on next is the skin tone and color grading that. So I'm going to collapse the local dodge and burn and the frequency separation. I'm going to hold shift, press command G, group them together, just so I can kind of see what the before and after looks like, and it looks pretty damn good. Okay, looks good. So now I'm going to go into the selective color. I love selective color for my skin tone. If you haven't seen my video on YouTube, I have a video that kind of covers how I do my skin tones. And I'm going to go ahead and move this back and forth. I love using the red, so this one I'm going to probably go around -22. Looks pretty good. And we'll go maybe +2 on this one. Yeah, I'll go +2. And then we'll add a little bit of yellow. And we'll darken it up just a little bit. We'll go +3. Then we'll go into the yellows, because reds and yellows are typically in the skin tone. So now I'm on the yellow. I'm going to kind of play with these sliders left and right. And I like that little bit of red that it added. We're going to go into magentas and +2. Yellows. You know what? Let me zoom in so you guys can actually see this a little bit better. Command plus. I like zooming out for some reason when I'm doing my skin tones. I don't like to zoom in, as weird as that sounds. So yeah, we'll go like maybe +8. There we go. And then on the yellows, we'll bring up the blacks to like 6. So now I'm gonna zoom out. I'm gonna hit the little plus here. And yeah, that's looking good. So the skin tone looks good, and I actually like the color grade that it's added to the overall image, so I'm just gonna leave it like that. I'm gonna add another selective color layer. And this one, because there's a lot of blues, I'm gonna try to target the blue wall. And I'm gonna go into my cyan. So obviously we have our cyans and we have our blues here. So I'm gonna go to +45, and look at this. Look how much of that blue really pops out. So I'm gonna go to +45. And the magentas. I'll go 12. If I can get it there. There we go. Yellows. We'll go -8. And then +11 on the blacks. Then I'll go into the blues. I'm going to do 69. 56. 6. And 17. So if I hit this little eyeball, this is the before and the after. Now it did it to the overall image. And I don't mind. It did the jacket a little bit, but I kind of liked that the jacket's darker. And the clouds over here got a little bit darker, or the sky I should say, so I like that. I'm just gonna go ahead and just leave it like that. Now I'm gonna get it into the color balance. I'll go ahead and run that action. And I'm gonna go into my midtones, and on the midtones, I'm gonna leave this one at 0. We're gonna go to the negatives. I wanna add just a little bit more yellow. In my highlights, I'm gonna go -3, and look at that. Look how much of that highlights really pops right there. So we'll go -3, and then just add a little bit more red back into it because it went a little bit too yellow. And then we'll go into our shadows, and then the shadows will go negative or +4. There we go. Look at that. Adds that nice little blue tinge to the image. And then the highlights, I mean the cyans will go -1. So let's see what we got here. So this is the before and after. Just a small effect there. Just very, very subtle. Just very, very subtle effect. Okay. So let's kind of look at what I have so far. This is the before. This is the after. This is looking pretty good so far. Now the curves color grade, I sometimes use this on this image. I didn't use it, but it's just kind of just adds like a subtle little bit of a red tint to it. I don't think this image needs it, but I kind of like it now. Yeah, I'll leave it. Screw it. I'll leave it. Then I go into camera raw. So I already have an action. I'm going to hit that play button. It's going to make the file. It's going to merge everything. It's going to make it a smart object. And then I'm going to go to camera raw for some toning. Now, I've already done this image before, so I just saved the raw file settings, and I'm just gonna apply it. Now, when I'm editing images, and I'm doing like a series, or if I'm doing client work, I'll edit one image, and then I'll save it as a preset, and then I'll apply that same, settings or adjustments to every other image. So I'm gonna go ahead and open this up. So I'm gonna go into camera raw. And it should be located here. And I think I called it Daphne color. Here it is, boom, Daphne color. There we go. And so let's look at the before and after. So this is the before, and then this is the after. So let's just quickly go over the settings. So I just added 2 on the contrast, shadows +8, clarity 1, vibrance +4. The curves, I just brought it up just a little bit to add a little bit of exposure. Luminance, 4 on the oranges, 3 on the reds, yellows, and so forth. Nothing here. HSL, added some blues to the highlights. Shadows, I added some kind of brownish tones. Grain 10, and then these are the settings for the calibration. Now, I was debating whether to kind of just show you all this stuff, but the problem is that these settings are going to be different from every single image that you work with. It's going to be dependent on the colors. So one of the things that I'm going to say that's going to be very important when you're working on your own images is the HSL. It's going to be extremely important, playing around with this and seeing what's going to work for your image. The split toning is going to be important as well. And then the calibration. So that would be my best advice for you guys as you're editing your own images, because you can write these settings down and it might look good on certain images, but it's not going to look good on maybe a natural light photo in the morning, or you know, a nighttime photo or a golden hour photo. So keep those things in mind. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit OK, so I can already apply that. And I like to always look at the before and afters as I'm going through each step. So look at that, before and then after. It's looking good. Woo! Dang, it looks even. It looks good even the second time as I'm editing through this image. So I do have a detail sharpen action, but I'm not gonna use it for this image. But it just reminded me something. I forgot to do the eyes. So I'm gonna make a new layer, and I'm gonna go in here, and you'll notice that in one of the eyes right here, the catch light didn't show up as much over here. So all I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna get the clone stamp. I'm gonna make sure it says sample. We're gonna go to all layers, and I'm gonna sample this eye, if I can actually get it to work. There we go. And I'm gonna hold Alt, and I'm gonna steal this little catch light, and I'm gonna go ahead and brush it right over here, boink. And there we go. So now we got a catch light. So now I went from that catch light to that. It looks pretty cool. And what I'm gonna do also is I'm gonna make a curves adjustment layer. I'm gonna bring that up, there we go. And I'm gonna press Control I so I can invert the mask. And I'm gonna get the brush tool. And I'm just gonna make these eyes just pop. Ever so slightly. So let's see. It's just a subtle effect. I don't like to go too crazy with the eyes. So we'll leave it like that. So that looks pretty good. So we got that. And what was my next step? Ah, the contrast pop. So I have a contrast pop that I use. I'm gonna run that action. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna darken areas that I don't wanna draw any attention to. So I'm gonna get my brush, and I'm gonna make sure I have my normal brush there. Now I have like some random brush. Let's go into my todo el pelo brush, but let's bring all the flow to 100. So I'm gonna darken up areas like this. I don't want my eyes going here. I definitely don't want my eyes going on the sidewalk here, so I'm gonna darken that up. I'm gonna go ahead and darken the side of the wall some more. I know we did it earlier, but I'm just gonna darken it up just a little bit right there. And I'm gonna add just a little bit over here, right over here to the side, right there. I'm gonna push the backslash key. I'm gonna make sure that I'm not getting it on the skin. So I'm gonna make sure that I'm not getting too cute. And I'm not getting on the skin. It doesn't have to be perfect too, by the way, because this is just darkening up just a little bit, so it doesn't have to be super perfect. There we go. Good. And backslash key. There we go. So let's take a look at the contrast pop. Boom. So it just added a little bit more attention to Daphne. So I think we're almost done with this edit. We're almost getting to the very end. So the next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna go to the gradient map tone. I love using this gradient map. This is in one of my videos. I'm gonna actually use it, and then I believe I went to about 10 opacity. So there we go, and let's take a look at it. Yep, looks good. And let's see. Man, this image is almost finished here. So now I'm gonna go into curves, and I'm gonna go into the blues channel, and I wanna add like a blue type of hue to the image. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add an anchor here, and I'm gonna lift this up. And as I lift it up, see how it has that like blue type of hue? Now that I'm bringing it up way too much, so I'm probably gonna bring it up like around 6 or even 8. Let's see what 8 looks like. I can grab that. Of course it's not gonna work, so I'm gonna have to type it in. There we go. And so let's check it out. There you go. So kind of got rid of this kind of yellow tint here, which isn't a bad thing, but I kind of want to go with this whole like blue thing that I got going on here. So I was like, you know what? Blue, a little bit of a tint, you know, can look cool. So yeah, I'm digging it. It's working for me. So we'll leave it like that. And then the last one I'm going to do is I'm going to go into, I want to say it's my color pop Vato action. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add a little bit of a glow to this image back here. So when I first saw this, I wanted to make this area glow a little bit. So now I'm just going to get a brush and I'm just going to simply add this glow back here. And all I have is a color dodge with curves set. And you have to be careful with this because this glow can get really out of hand sometimes. And I like to add it to certain parts of the image where I want it to shine a little bit, but you have to be very careful because you can easily overdo it. Okay, so let's see what I got here. So this is the before and then the after. See how it just adds a little bit more light and a little bit more life to that area in the back over there. So that looks cool. I think, you know what? I'm gonna add a levels. So as I'm looking at this image, as I'm editing it for the second time, I'm gonna add a levels here. And yes, I'm definitely gonna add a levels, but I don't wanna add it to the overall image. What I wanna do is I wanna raise it up. I'm looking at her skin tone. I want it there to be a little bit more of a pop. So I'm gonna bring that up right about there, okay? I'm gonna press Control I to invert that. I'm gonna get the brush and I wanna brush that in just ever so slightly. So I'm gonna actually zoom in to the face. And I want some of that levels adjustment that I added to the side of the face because the light was coming from camera right. This side of the face should have like that nice sharpness of highlight. So let's see if it added it. So yeah, there you go. See that? Boom. I like it. I'm digging it. So overall, this is the image. We started off with the before, and then this is the after that we ended up with. Cool beans. I'm proud of myself. That's awesome. For the second time editing this image, it actually worked out pretty cool. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna just crop. So obviously you're probably looking at the legs and be like, oh my gosh, this is, you know, the legs being cropped off there. Well, I know it's gonna be the 8x10, so I'm just gonna get the crop tool. I can go ahead and move this up a little bit and crop it in. Okay. And I can maybe leave it like right about here, maybe move it a little bit this way. Okay. And then once I do that, then it's ready to, you know, export, ready to save for the web. Now, I'm not going to go over how I sharpen my images because I already have a tutorial on my YouTube channel. So check that out if you want to see how I get my images sharpened. I think I even have a free sharpen action that I made for you guys. So this was super fun. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this. I'm planning on doing more full edits. Let me know what you thought of this video. If you want to see more, did I go too slow? Did I go too fast? Do you want to see more intermediate? You want to see faster? Or do you want to just see more beginner level stuff? Do you want me to explain every little detail? And other than that, guys, I truly appreciate it. If you saw this whole thing, seriously, I truly appreciate it, man. And I'll see you guys on the next video. Thank you so much.